Just pull up my screen here. Thanks everybody for having me. Thanks, Julia, for inviting me. Yeah, I am an environmental coordinator with the Air Pollution Control District. And let's see, I do several things for the district. One of the things I do is I administer a couple of programs. One being the Lawn Care for Cleaner Air program, and the other one being the More Mow Less program. Both programs are aimed at reducing the air pollution that is coming from lawn maintenance. The Lawn Care for Cleaner Air program is a rebate program, which allows you to actually, get money back on the purchase of new battery-powered electric lawn equipment. So we incentivize you to trade in old gas-powered equipment and purchase new, much cleaner electric-powered equipment. The Grow More Mow Less program sort of spun off of Lawn Care for Cleaner Air, and that is not the same type of program. It's more of an outreach and education program where we talk about replacing sort of the traditional turf grass that we see in yards with plant material that doesn't need to be mowed as much or at all. So a little bit of background on both programs. Lawn Care for Cleaner Air has been around for kind of a long time now. We are entering into our 18th year for the program. Like I said before, we give out rebates on new electric equipment. That equipment includes electric powered mowers, trimmers, blowers, the batteries that power that equipment, and also on sort of your old school kind of human powered reel mowers, not REAL, but REEL, the kind that you push with your own muscles. The program has two different rebate levels. We have a residential level, and those are your that's your kind of residential powered, regular powered electric equipment. We also have Lawn Care for Cleaner Air Professional, and that is part of the program that gives out higher rebate amounts on more powerful equipment that's geared toward folks that have bigger yards or actual, lawn care professionals. Grow More Mow Less. Let's see, that program is actually entering into its 9th year. Like I said earlier, it's more of an outreach and education program aimed at reducing turf grass and replacing it with low-mow or no-mow plant material. And some of those materials could be native wildflowers or native grasses, trees, shrubs, raised garden beds, alternative ground covers, etc. There's a huge list of plant materials we could get into right there. So a little bit about why people should consider making the switch to electric equipment. Gas-powered equipment emits a lot of different pollutants, including carbon monoxide, particulate matter, and the pollutants that are precursors to ground level ozone, the pollutant that gives us so much trouble here in the Ohio Valley. Battery-powered equipment is much quieter than gas-powered equipment, so bother you and your neighbors a lot less. And actually, the equipment requires very little maintenance, so there's just not as much sort of upkeep involved as there is in traditional gas-powered equipment. Also, the technology associated with the equipment keeps getting more and more powerful, while at the same time, the cost of the equipment keeps coming down. So, it seemed like just a few years ago, people said, well, I just can't find a mower powerful enough for my yard. And now you just don't hear that as much. You don't hear about people running into charging problems as much. The batteries for this equipment are more powerful. They charge faster and keep a charge longer now too. So here's just an example of some of the equipment that we, give rebates on. I mentioned, I think, all of this earlier. Something cool that we do is when you recycle an old piece of equipment, say you're getting rid of your old gas-powered mower and you want an electric mower instead, when you recycle that equipment, we double your rebate. So typically you would get $50 back on, say, a regular electric mower. But if you recycle your old gas-powered mower, we double that to 100. So we double the rebate amounts on all this equipment pictured here when you recycle old equipment. I've got some information here about how you can participate in the program. You purchase, we've got essentially two ways you can get a rebate through the program. You can purchase your equipment anywhere you like, whether it's at a small mom and pop shop in town or online or in a big box store. And then what you do is from our website, you get a rebate request form, and then you gather the materials necessary, which are all listed on our website. Just a few pieces of documentation that we need to process the rebate. And then you send that in to our office and we process the rebate and then send you a check back through the mail. We also have a small network of participating dealers, and these are local stores that participate with us so that you would be able to buy the equipment there at the dealer and get the rebate off of your purchase. So you wouldn't have to wait for your rebate. You would get the rebate as money off of the purchase at the time of sale. I spoke earlier about recycling your old equipment. We have 3 different Metro recycling centers that can accept that equipment. They are on Hubbard's Lane, Dixie Highway, and also on Meriwether Avenue. One thing that we do require is that participants of the program be residents of Louisville/Jefferson County. The program is intended to improve the air here locally, so that is a stipulation that we've made with the program there. Again, I spoke a little bit about Lawn Care for Cleaner Air Professional earlier. What this is, again, is bigger rebates on more powerful equipment for lawn care pros and homeowners with large yards. We have an agreement with the company Steel, and a local distributor, Bryan Equipment, that distributes steel equipment. And that has allowed us to give even bigger rebates back on some of their pro-powered equipment. They have a really, nice pro top of the line kind of set of equipment out there. So we like to be able to incentivize the purchase of that equipment. I'd like to speak about partnerships for the program a little bit. There's one in particular I'd like to highlight. There is a lawn care company called the Clausen Group that works out of Louisville and Lexington both. And for the last couple of years, we've been partnering with them, helping them to replace their entire line of old gas-powered equipment with electric-powered, pro-powered steel equipment. So they've been taking advantage of the program to replace all of their push mowers and trimmers and blowers and batteries. We've been doing some cross promotion with them as far as highlighting each other on our social media, and they've They have a blog that they do, and a few times they've run blog posts about their switch to electric equipment, why it's better for them and for their customers and for the environment. So that's been a really successful partnership that we really hope to be able to replicate with other lawn care pros moving forward. So moving on to Grow More Mow Less. Like I said earlier, not a rebate program. So we don't have any cash to give people associated with Grow More Mow Less, but we got plenty of ideas for folks who want to reduce the amount of mowing that they have to do. So we talk to people all the time about ways to do that and the plants that would make good alternatives to grass in their yards. So in a lot of ways, lawns are incredibly resource intensive. Just your typical kind of turf grass yard. As far as land use goes, in the US, there's approximately 63,000 square miles of just turf grass. That's about the size of Texas. So that's a lot of land just being devoted to growing just your standard grass. It takes about 9 billion gallons a day to water all that grass, and approximately 800 million gallons of fuel is burned per year mowing that grass, and then another 17 million gallons approximately spilled refilling all that equipment to mow all that grass. So not even talking about the air pollution necessarily, but just in other resources as well. It's just it's very intensive to take care of grass. So here I've posted just a lot of low/no-mow plant resources, some local, some national. A lot of good ideas here about what you can grow in your yard, best way to do it, ways to test your soil, ways to see what would grow best in your yard according to soil and to shade. So a lot of good resources here, and they're hyperlinked. I think the presentation should be probably available after the event as well. So let's see. And here I've just got some photos about different ways that people can, quote, grow more, mow less, whether that's just in your yard, or if you are a business or an agency that has a large campus. There are lots of ways to do this. Just in little islands in parking lots, along roadsides. If you've got one of these kind of in the bottom far right-hand corner of the screen, you'll see a typical kind of Germantown or maybe Old Highlands kind of yard that's kind of small and slopes down toward the street like that. Mowing on that slope is kind of a pain, and you wouldn't even use that grass anyway. So a lot of folks plant stuff in that space that doesn't have to be mowed, and that's just a perfect small example of ways to pull this off. The Grow More Mow Less Facebook page has over the last several years grown a lot in popularity. It's one of the more popular Metro Facebook pages, and I post a lot there about stuff going on around town and things like that. But we also have people send in pictures from their yards and kind of share tips and things that they've done. So it's a good place for people to get inspiration, to see about, quote, grow more, mow less type things happening around town. So if you don't like that page, I would maybe recommend you do that, because it's a good resource. And really that's about all I have. I've got links here for how to get a hold of us at Lawn Care for Cleaner Air and at Grow More Mow Less, and how to get a hold of me. So yeah, that's what I have. Let's see, how do I stop sharing?
Awesome. Thank you, Bradley. And I know we had some interesting discussion happening in the chat box. If anybody wants to share the question they posted, you can take yourself off mute and ask Bradley. If not, I'm happy to share them.
I'll go ahead.
Perfect.
It's Barbara Berman with Wild Ones Louisville chapter, and we're working with Beargrass Thunder LLC, Jody Dahmer and Mariah Corso on trying to change the language for the code on weeds. And I put in what we're working on. Margaret Carrero, who's the former biology professor at U of L, and I will be meeting with Cassie Chambers Armstrong on Friday to go over the language and see how we can proceed to try and get it changed.
I'm glad you brought that up. That's been an issue, as most of you all probably know, for a long time. And a lot of people come to me with those questions about, so you say we should be doing, these types of things in our yards, codes and regs say that we should be doing this in our yards. You both work for the city, what gives? So I think we just need to get on the same page and get definitive language that is more clear, and get training for all of the codes and regs officers whose jobs will be to enforce that. Over the years, I've been in contact with them and provided sort of sample language from other policies from across the country that I felt were more in spirit with what we're talking about here. There never really has been a change to that language up to this point, but I feel like hopefully with your all's work, we will see a change to that language that is more clear and gives the officers the clear instructions on how to proceed when it comes to enforcing said regulation. Yeah, that's about all I feel like I can say about it.
Bradley, would you be able to look at the language that we've come up with and see and comment on it? And would you be willing to maybe write a letter? Are you able to write a letter to Metro Council? So that if we could all come together with one language, then we could have more power to change it.
I'd be happy to look at it. I feel like that would maybe be best approached sort of with maybe a joint effort from APCD with management involved as well. I feel like the decision that would have to be made to change the language would be high up, and probably getting consensus sort of at more of a parallel level within local government would be probably the best way to go.
I'll weigh in a little on that for also Bradley. I think I'll just say, first of all, I think that working with Metro Council is a really good strategy. This is an ordinance that is set by Metro Council, so the language of that code is Metro Council's decision. So you're really going to the right place. That's where the buck stops ultimately. I think the idea of initially a resolution is a good place to start. That might be a little bit quicker to go down that road than the initial change to the ordinance language itself. And that resolution would bring attention to Codes and Regs, the department that implements the property maintenance code. So I think that that's a really good strategy to start with.
Well, you mentioned three things: ordinance, code, and resolution. So I agree that this is a code. So
It is in the Metro Code of Ordinances. This is not part of the Land Development Code, which is separate code, also enacted by Metro Council. Land Development Code is more on the upfront side of things that are happening, but the Property Maintenance Code is in the Metro Code of Ordinances. So, and again, that's under the authority of Metro Council. So I think it's really great that you're already engaging council members. I think that APCD can definitely be a part of that conversation, because we really want to make sure it's clear why we support grow more, mow less concepts. I don't know about signing off on actual language per se. That might take us out of a role. I would have to check up the line just to see, but certainly providing support for the ideas behind that is at a minimum, yes. So, I mean, I think staying in contact with Bradley on that is a really good way to make sure that, it's clear to everyone involved that there's health benefits to be had here. This is not just about one person's preferred landscaping style, although there is an argument to be made there too. But there's real health benefits when we're talking about this, and that's where APCDs, that's where our starting point with reducing the emissions from lawn care is all about promoting the health effects or the health benefits of those reduced emissions.
So Michelle, who are you? What is your position?
Apologize, I should have introduced myself. I'm Michelle King. I'm also with the Air Pollution Control District. I'm Director of Program Planning there. Okay. The other step that I will definitely take, and I encourage you all in your kind of advocacy for this issue to also be in contact with certainly codes and regulations. That's Robert Kirchdorfer is the director of that department, but also with Jeff O'Brien. He is not just the director of Develop Louisville, which is within the same cabinet, so to speak, cabinet's probably not the right word, division of Metro government, but he's also right now co-chair of Louisville Forward, which is the umbrella over both codes and regulations. Develop Louisville, which implements Land Development Code, the Office of Advanced Planning and Sustainability, lots of good allies there, as well as APCD. So to build that Metro internal coalition, Jeff O'Brien's a great starting point.
Hi, this is Tina Halbig, and I'm concerned about the looks like not in sync over the weeds code that was put in the chat area. It looks like there's no allowance for stream buffers when streams are abutting property, not to have weeds over 10 inches tall when you're talking about understory. It seems like it's in conflict with MSD's regulations as well as land development code.
Tina, the first thing I put in the chat is the existing code. That's where it says weeds. Then the second thing that I put in the chat is what Margaret Carrera, Wild Ones in Beargrass Thunder is suggesting, and I can't actually see it now.
But there's nothing about the height of the plants.
Well,
and the code has in there 10 inches. So are you removing that 10-inch criteria?
Yeah, we're putting something positive instead of something negative.
Well, that's very logical. It's great.
So the second thing at 618 says what we're proposing.
I mean, otherwise they're encouraging cutting underneath trees.
Oh, wait a minute, I might have copied this wrong.
Which is incorrect with MSD stream buffer as well as land development code.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
for setbacks of a minimum of 25 foot, 50 foot along Floyd's Fork, and 100 foot along Floyd's Fork, as well as 50-foot along streams in the Floyd's Fork watershed.
And I'll just add, while we definitely would want in drafting any kind of recommendation to consider all of the different settings that it could be applied, what we have seen when we've seen conflict between this particular property maintenance ordinance and, someone trying to do more naturalized landscaping, that's really happened more in dense urban neighborhoods. Your neighbor's not a stream, your neighbor's, maybe just a few feet from your house. That typically has been where this has come up as an issue. So that may be something else to kind of keep in mind as you're thinking through recommendations, how to address that setting, the context sensitive issue there.
Hi, Sean Riff with Louisville Compost Co-op. So I love what you all are doing. I've been following you since I've been in Louisville. But I had a couple of questions about if there are any incentives to convert typical grass lawns to, say, moss lawns or the permaculture setups. And kind of to tie into that, what are some of the zoning issues that you've had to address, or do you have maybe contacts that help address some of these issues?
Well, yeah, I mean, if by incentives you mean like monetary incentives, I can't really speak to that. But yes, as far as, it's like what we were talking, like what I was talking about earlier. There are lots of like alternative ground covers to your regular kind of turf grass that are better options as far as, reducing mowing, reducing the pollution associated with mowing. So yeah, a moss lawn, a lot of people consider like clover to be a weed, but it in my mind, it's a perfectly, normal ground cover that, while, will need some mowing, not nearly as much mowing as regular turf grass.
It's not going to get above 10 inches, right?
Right. So, as far as zoning issues, I feel like it's a lot of what we just spoke about in the last few minutes. The maintenance code says, it talks about weeds and it talks about a height restriction of 10 inches. I think that the language needs to be cleared up as far as what is considered to be a weed, what can be considered natural landscaping alternatives. That's where I think a lot of the problem originates from, is just sort of the ambiguity in the language. I had, there was someone voiced concerns to us recently about, they had some growth in their yard, and what they considered to be some native milkweed. And the code officer said, well, if it's milkweed, then it's a weed and we have to cut it down. So it's just a matter of everybody getting on the same page. And I think that, that's really key.
Maybe refer to it by its scientific name.
Right.
Kind of on that same step. So I noticed in the code that Barbara posted, it says, trees, shrubs, and other plants that are deemed, unless deemed harvestable. Was that the wording?
No.
I forget.
No, it doesn't say that.
Any plant growth.
You're
Sorry.
talking about the existing code?
The existing code. So for example, if it was converting a lawn to like a vertical permaculture, growth stand, or you're growing corn, or you're growing kale in your garden, and for some reason you have super kale, so it's over 10 inches. Would that be considered? I saw a couple of head shakes. but
With agriculture.
that would be considered agriculture. But is that dependent on the zoning for the property, or is that just the metro ordinance?
What I think from my experience, a lot of the issues with stuff like that comes from specific neighborhoods or homeowner associations, because you can have different rules for every different part of town that you live in, depending, that can decide what type of garden you can grow in your backyard and your front yard. I've seen, I've had people send pictures to me in where they've converted their entire front and backyard into very tall gardens. I don't know. They didn't tell me they had any issues with codes coming for them about their incredibly tall kale or whatever it was. I don't remember right now, but I have heard people talk about their specific sort of smaller city that they live in, or homeowners associations that did not allow for what they wanted to do.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. So also, I just thought of a random fun question. What about using like goats to mow a lawn? Is that allowable?
As far as I know, we actually had a family in the neighborhood I live in. They moved about a year ago, but for several years up until then, they had 2 different goats that they would, tie to a stake in their yard, and they would walk around in a circle around the stake and mow and eat that area. And then they would move them to the next kind of circle. So as far as I know, there's no law against goats in the city. I mean, a lot of these things are complaint based. Mm-hmm. So I could imagine in some parts of town, having goats hang out in your front yard all the time may cause a problem, and have somebody called on you. But I had neighbors with goats, and I don't remember any issues. So
much for answering my question. Appreciate it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm certainly going to have to look into renting a goat because I'm loving this idea.
Yeah, I mean, we used to kind of joke about it, like on the Facebook page and stuff. And then I moved into a neighborhood where somebody did it. So
there's a couple of cities that have used goats to clean up large patches of like poison ivy and other undesirables. Because for the most part, they don't go for like milkweed or the taller plants that they don't like. They'll go for the junky plants that even, native species don't really do so great in.
That's hilarious. I love that. I bet there's a program around Louisville that you can rent a goat for a day. I'm sure there
should
is.
Be.
If there's not, there should be.
I had a comment, if we still have time. Hi, I'm Becca Truman. I think I know some of you. I'm with the Jefferson County Soil and Water Conservation District, as well as some other little things around town. And I think it's really awesome what you all are doing. I've been kind of adjacently following it. If I had the more capacity, I would be involved if I could. But I guess just a comment, speaking also as sort of a bureaucrat in some ways, is that these things can get changed and you can add like detail after detail to try to protect, as much as you can. And that's really great. But I think it's always a shame when people go to make decisions and they're not consulting the people that they've hired to do similar work. So I don't know if something like that can be written in, but for example, in the code ordinances, if it can say, contact the Air Pollution Control District, contact Trees Louisville or other organizations that are already within Metro to be connected to make these decisions. I think that would be a huge benefit to kind of addressing some of these problems that come up.
Yeah, I'm all for people using the resources that are already around them. I think to kind of echo what Michelle said a little earlier, I think we have to kind of know our role in this process. We can certainly talk about, you know, the health benefits of these activities and the air pollution associated with lawn maintenance. But yeah, speaking to Metro Council about this, I think is really probably the way to go.
So I had another question, because I assume Louisville Metro is a pretty big, or has a pretty large lawn maintenance space. Is there a switch in Louisville Metro to electric? And also, because electric is typically powered by coal and other fossil fuels, is there any plan to switch to a renewable energy source, say solar, and maybe incorporation of a power wall or some other similar technologies?
Well, so when Metro does mowing, they typically send out riding mowers. There are electric riding mowers out there. The cost on those is still pretty prohibitive for most organizations, including ours. However, there has been a sort of a gradual rollout of propane powered riding mowers. Propane is not electric, but it burns a lot cleaner than gas. Also something that Metro started doing a couple of years ago was implementing a policy where they would not send mowing crews out on air quality alert days. So days that the air quality is forecast in Jefferson County to potentially have an issue with ozone, they're not mowing on those days. So that policy, along with adopting a gradual switch over to propane, is sort of Metro's response to that. Another one of our partners, U of L, they do a lot of mowing as well. They, in the last several years, switched over their entire fleet of riding mowers to propane. So there are several entities within town that are making that switch. And it won't be too terribly long before riding electric mowers come down in cost. We've seen it happen with the rest of the technology, and it's only a matter of time. So
kind of paired with that, and I just saw Melissa's question, which I think fits in with my question really well. Is there also any plan to maybe convert some of those spaces that are constantly being mowed to more natural, or even like we were talking about, moss or clover spaces, or even, maybe garden spaces, like permaculture setups?
We have, discussed lots of different times over the years converting space that the city owns to more kind of, quote, grow more, mow less type spaces. The issue often comes down to maintenance. A really good partner of ours, Louisville Grows, has done some really good work in converting urban spaces that would typically just be lots that need to be mowed into spaces where you can now have trees growing and community gardens and that type of work. And we're always looking for partners to do that sort of a project with, whether it be a school or another type of entity or organization that has a lot of space that they have to mow. So yeah, we're open to any of those types of projects.
If I could jump in real quick with that. My name is Autumn Costell, and I work at Jefferson and Moyle Forest, which is under Parks and Recreation. So me and some other people in parks, especially like the volunteer coordinator, Sarah Flarsham, we are trying to get more native plants as well as some community gardens into the parks. So that is something that we are really working toward. I would love to have way more native plants because I go actually through our Louisville Echo program to educate kids at the parks. And sometimes I get there and there's not really a lot to show them. So we are definitely working on it within parks. It's the kind of slow progress. If anyone is interested in helping, we definitely need more help and support with it.
Is that monetary support or?
Probably both. I would have to check with our volunteer coordinator who's been kind of heading it up. We are applying for some grants to for more monetary support, but also just volunteers because there's a lot of parks and we can't really get to all of them all at once. Mhm.
I mean, I would love to walk through a park and suddenly have like a bunch of pear trees and a bunch of apple trees that you could pick from, or like a community kale space, or I don't know why that's the only vegetable I can think of right now, but you know, like maybe even native edible plants, and have it designated out and signed out, you know, these are native vegetative plants, have a bite, caution allergies for such and such.
Be there first.
Yeah, that's what we'd love to have. Yeah, that sounds awesome.
Dreams, right? Dreams.
We have another question from Melissa. What are you doing to guarantee that the historically neglected neighborhoods that have suffered the most from Louisville air pollution will have equal access to these programs? Great question.
That is a great question. You know, let me think about that for a second, because anybody in Jefferson County any resident of Jefferson County is eligible to participate in the Lawn Care for Cleaner Air program. And, you know, we have in the past, you know, had shops in our dealer network in, you know, all over town, whether that be, you know, Highlands or Germantown or the West End or the South End or Old Louisville or wherever. So we've tried to set up our dealer network so that people can take advantage of the program kind of wherever they live in town. Over the years, a lot of our participating dealers have dropped out of the program because they, you know, didn't sell enough of the equipment to keep it in stock all the time, or B, they didn't really want to have to continue to keep up with the paperwork, or C, people were, you know, they were seeing a lot of their business go to kind of big box or online retailers. However, in doing some planning for this upcoming season within Lawn Care for Cleaner Air, I am looking at what would be considered our environmental justice areas within Jefferson County, and seeing how we can, that would be like the EJ parts of town defined by KIPTA, and seeing how we can reach those folks better, because, you know, a lot of our rebates come from parts of town where there are bigger single family lots. That's where a lot of the rebate activity is coming from. But, you know, we would really like to be a program that reaches all parts of the city. And, you know, we basically do rebates in all zip codes every year. It's just a matter of kind of evening that out. So I'm looking at ways through our outreach and sort of our campaign for this coming year to make it a point to reach out to folks in those areas so that we can see the benefit from the reduction in pollution and noise pollution in those areas. As far as Grow More Mow Less, you know, we've partnered with groups like Trees Louisville and Louisville Grows to help them get the word out, and also partner on projects for the reforestation and the sort of the replenishing of tree canopy in parts of town where that's been a real issue. And you see a lot of the urban heat island effect. So I feel like both programs do that, but you know, can always do more. So
we had a question from Nicole. What is the role of Brightside with converting city properties to mow less areas?
I think that's probably a question for Brightside. I can't really, I don't know if I can speak to that all that much. We haven't partnered with Brightside in a while on any projects. I'm not sure.
I will point out, you know, we don't have a whole lot going on officially with Brightside right now, and they do have a new director, so this will be a great time for us to reach out and try to establish perhaps some opportunities for partnership. But Brightside does go out and actively look for sponsorship for their bright sites, which are often medians, other, you know, roundabouts and places like that. Small spaces typically, but ones that would otherwise be mowed. And a lot of their goal is around beautification and cleanliness of the city, so litter abatement. But certainly the greening aspect of the city is something that they're very much supporting through those programs. So I'll try to find a link to drop in the chat if anyone is interested in reaching out to them about being a Bright Site sponsor, or how they might help them promote that program, because that is an opportunity to take a space that would otherwise not only be mowed, but then you got to send the crew out to get to it to mow it, because there are these small spaces all over, and they can really enhance kind of quality of place in the neighborhood. I always love it when I'm driving around and I see one of there's bright spots. Bright side.
Part of the reason I asked that is because I think they have a lot more visibility than some of the other Louisville Metro departments do. And so if there was some coordination between your department and other departments that are working towards the same goals with maybe different objectives, that they have kind of a brand that people see and understand, and you might be able to accomplish more by borrowing off of their brand awareness in Louisville.
They've been around for a long time. So
yeah,
that's a good idea.
And we've partnered with them on things in the past. It's been a while, but like I said, you know, we haven't really been in contact with them as much lately.
Thanks.
Riley, I have a question. How many rebates do you issue each year?
It varies, but usually several hundred. I mean, we see a kind of an ebb and flow year to year, depending on lots of different factors, but several hundred a year at least. Wow,
that's a lot more than I thought. Has COVID impacted that at all last year?
Yeah, we saw a slight dip in the number of rebates that we processed. It really impacted our sort of outreach efforts. We typically go out and talk to people at events, several throughout the year, and we weren't able to attend, you know, any, so just like most everybody else. We weren't able to get out there and talk to anybody. We we distribute a lot of promotional materials around town in lots of different spaces. We weren't able to do that. Our advertising campaign was not geared toward what happened. We're changing that up this year to go even more digital than we had been before, because that's how you reach people during COVID, apparently. So yeah, it's had a pretty big impact on the program. The good news is that it's such a long-standing and respected and sort of well-established program that it continued to issue several hundred rebates even through all of that. So, we've been going for almost 20 years with it. So people know it and take advantage of it, even when there's a pandemic. People still take advantage of the program.
That's great. And I know Melissa asked a follow-up question to my initial question about how many you have. Do you know what zip codes those come from, or majority zip codes?
Yeah, the real kind of sort of powerhouse zip codes that do the most every year are like 40205, 06, 07, 04, sort of Highlands, St. Matthews, Germantown, Crescent Hill, Clifton. We've seen an uptick in some sort of more further eastern parts of the county from people with bigger yards, like finally making the conversion over to electric equipment.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that sort of in old Louisville. So really the biggest chunk of them come from that kind of ring there in the kind of old part of the city there with Highlands, Crescent Hill, Old Louisville, some dipping down into the South End. And so, yeah, I'd say if I had to pick one, it would probably be 40205 is where we do the biggest chunk.
Well, I'm looking at the clock and I see that it's 7:01. I feel like this really flew by. We do have one more question, and that is, how is your program funded?
So that's a really cool part of the program. People might assume because it's sponsored by a city agency that it's taxpayer funded, but it is not. So we, as the Air Pollution Control District, we do a lot of different things. One of the things that we do is permit all of the different businesses that operate within Jefferson County that emit pollution. So those businesses have a permit to operate and emit a certain amount and a certain type of pollution. If those businesses were to say, if one of them were to exceed that permit for a particular reason, whatever that is, then a possibility would be that that business could be fined for, a certain amount, a penalty for that violation. When that happens, those funds go into a penalty fund, and they are used to fund a lot of different programs and things within APCD. And our program comes exclusively from those penalty funds. So, we take the money that the permit violators, give to the agency, and we turn around and use it in a way that can help clean up the air a little bit. So that's something that has always been the funding source for the program. And we're really proud that it's not a taxpayer funded program, that we find a way to pay for it with those penalty funds.
Yeah, that's very cool. Thank you for answering that. Well, it's 7:03, so we went a little bit over. Thank you for everyone for hanging out with us, and I'm sure we could have kept this discussion rolling. Thank you, Bradley, for your expertise, and Michelle for chiming in as well. we appreciate all of the work you guys are doing in the city and the community. So thank you for being here and your expertise. I hope everyone stays safe tonight. Most of the roads are clear. I know I live in Germantown and some of our back roads are still a little bit dicey. So stay put if you can and stay warm. If you're not already following the LSC on Facebook, I will pop that link in one more time. That's the best way to stay connected and up to date with everything that we're doing. Hopefully I see everyone for next month's Green Drinks. It's the third Wednesday of every month from 6 to 7 p.m. And I look forward to it. So until then, thank you, Bradley. Thanks, Michelle, and stay warm, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
All right, thank you all.
Thanks so much.